Kris, great to see you again. Always good to talk to people from the Taxpayers Federation. Tell us about the latest economic update that the Liberal government presented. What did they say?
So at the federal level, Ezra, Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland usually trots out twice a year and presents a full budget, usually in late February, early March. And right around now is when they do their economic or budget update. So twice a year, they have to actually show their math and show their homework. It looks terrible, as usual. What's interesting, though, this time around, is that they're actually sort of noticing that they have a spending problem. So all this time, Ezra, every single time, they'll present the budget in March, and then they'll blow it by the update. Present the budget in March, blow it again. This time, they are indeed blowing it, but not as badly as they have in the past. So it's kind of like you're in the drunk tank, and you're in there because you're drunk. But you're the most sober one in the drunk tank.
Well, I think that's you got to find the silver lining where you can, I guess. There's just some astonishing things there. I want to talk about two particular issues that aren't particularly with the economic update. They're just news around the same time. First is the bailout of Trudeau's absolute favorite interest group. There's a lot of interest groups, but the one that he is most dependent on, and the one that is most dependent on him, are regime media, the media party, mainstream media, legacy media. There's a lot of ways of describing it. I'm talking about CBC, CTV, and the newspapers, 99% of which take subsidies from Trudeau. And that's not an estimate or a guess. Over 1,500 different news media organizations in Canada take the bailout, which is actually like 99.8%, 99.7%. It's really astonishing. What do you have for us on Trudeau's latest gift to keep the media praising him?
Yeah, actually, this was part of the budget update. It's mentioned right there in the document released by the Finance Department. So, surprise, it's now going to be shoved through with that when this goes through Parliament. So, in a nutshell, it looks like they're doubling the amount of money that journalists who get the bailout are getting. So beforehand, on average, if a reporter / journalist, newsroom employee, whatever you want to call them, was on this bailout money, they'd get around $13,000 per year of their paycheck covered by the Trudeau government. But it's way worse now because they're more than doubling it. It's going to be around $29,000 per newsroom employee for the next 4 years. So this was all supposed to sunset next year. It was all supposed to fade away 2024. Surprise, it's not. It's now going to last them well past the next federal election. So this means that the journalists that are on the federal government payroll just got a huge bump in how much the government covers of their paycheck. And very clearly, this probably doesn't need to be said to your audience, but this is an enormous conflict of interest. There's no way a journalist should be paid by the government. Pretty hard to hold the government to account when you're counting on them for your paycheck. So that's a huge accountability problem, and it's a huge waste of money. So that's why the Taxpayers Federation, we're fighting this.
Well, that's incredible. I just want to confirm the numbers because they're so astonishing. Yeah. You're saying that under this new regime, $29,000 a year per reporter is what the grant, the subsidy is. Did I hear you right? $29,000 per reporter per year. Is that right?
Yes. So we follow very closely the work of Dr. Michael Geist on this issue, and also our friends over at Blacklock's Reporter. I'm sure you've spoken with them many times. They crunch the numbers on this, and it's around $29,000 a piece. Now, keep in mind,
4 years. That's an incredible subsidy. That's just astonishing. It is so absolutely a bribe, Kris. There's no other way to say it. That is stuffing $100 bills in the pockets of journalists who cover Trudeau. That's incredible.
It is. And you and I have worked in this industry for a long time, often together, Ezra. And there was a stat that came out just in the last few months. Well over 60% of Canadians now think that journalists are purposefully trying to mislead them with statements they know to be false.
Right.
So not just a mistake, a typo here and there. No. the vast majority of Canadians now think that they're being deliberately misled.
Right. Well, I mean, if any other sugar daddy were giving reporters 29 grand a year, it would have to be disclosed. And by the way, you can label it as an ad, like when a car company or it's illegal to have cigarette ads, but let's say a beer company. If a beer company was advertising and giving the equivalent of 29 grand per reporter per year, that wouldn't necessarily be a problem if it was marked ad and if they actually got value for money. By the way, if you had nothing but beer ads and you were doing very pro-beer news reporting, people would naturally say, that seems a little bit a little bit iffy. That's why when Pfizer and the other drug companies pour billions into media, people raise an eyebrow. But the crazy thing about the 29 grand per year per reporter from Trudeau is the government doesn't get ads. They're buying something else. They're buying the loyalty of these reporters, but at least the beer company shows that they're paying. But there is no disclaimer under a journalist after he or she praises Trudeau saying, disclaimer, this reporter received 29 grand from Trudeau. It is so unethical, and we would know that if it was a tobacco company, an alcohol company, a firearms company, an oil company. Any other lobbyist would have to disclose it. Trudeau keeps it a secret. If you didn't watch this program, or if you weren't a self-educated critic of the system, you would never know because the reporters themselves are not going to tell you.
Yeah, exactly. It's we've tried filing FOIs on this to find out exactly who's on the payroll, but the most of them look like there are. And keep in mind, there's two things here. One, this doesn't even touch the CBC. We're talking about reporters outside of the CBC here.
Right.
Also, you're mentioning advertising. This amount of money doesn't even come close to the amount of advertising that the government...
The advertising is on top of this.
Yes.
Holy cow.
So it's even worse and more.
I saw a press release from the government today that they talked about keeping Canadian journalists strong and independent. You don't make someone independent by paying them a bribe. That's how you make them dependent.
Yeah, so the minister responsible yesterday actually said, Ezra, we value a free press. By paying them. Orwell is rolling in his grave right now.